Hello everyone. So today I'm going to briefly make a review video over Unit 2 Cellular Transport. So that should hopefully help you understand everything. I've added the Quizlet cards to our class set, so make sure you review your definitions as much as you need to. This video is just going to briefly cover everything that we've done so far. So let's move on to that. Okay, so cell transport review. This is everything you should know. Starting off with passive transport. Passive transport does not need energy. None of them need energy. They move with the concentration gradient from high concentration to low concentration, which is called moving down the gradient as well. There are three main types that we've talked about. Simple diffusion, which moves particles just through the membrane, simply from high concentration areas to low concentration areas. So if there's a lot inside, it takes them outside. If there's a lot outside, it takes them inside. It just moves simply through that phospholipid bilayer. The facilitated diffusion does a similar thing, but these particles are larger molecules and they need a little guidance, so they use the protein channels embedded in the membrane. So we have the phospholipid bilayers in our membrane, and we also have the protein channels. So simple diffusion just goes through the cracks in the phospholipids. The facilitated diffusion goes through the protein channels. That's the only difference. And then we have osmosis that we talked about in class. Osmosis moves water, uniquely water, through the membrane. So remember, we've been talking about different particles moving through the membrane. Osmosis is water specific. Okay, that's all it's moving. So if you see the word water, think of osmosis. And the same way as simple diffusion, it just moves simply through the membrane. It does not need any protein channels. Now, when we talk about osmosis, we talk about tonicity. It's basically the concentration of water, right? How the water moves through the cells. So there's two key words that you need to know. Solvent, which is the water. Usually it's a liquid or fluid. Most cases it's water. Solute are the particles you're dissolving in that water. So there are three main types of tonicity. We have hypertonic. That means that water is moving out of the cell because there's more solute outside. So the water's moving to where it needs to go, right? So if there's a lot of water inside of the cell, it's going to move out of the cell. It's going from high concentration of water to low concentration of water, okay? So there's more solute outside because there's less water outside. So it's going to move to the less water area, higher solute. So the solute and the water are going to be opposites. If there's a lot of water, there's not a lot of solute, okay? So this is moving outside of the cell towards more solute, towards less water. That means the cell's going to shrink because the water is moving out of the cell. Isotonic is when you have water moving in and out equally, so it's a balanced cell. Hypertonic, since it's moving outside, the cell will shrink, right? If you release water from a water balloon, the balloon shrinks. Same idea here. Hypotonic is the opposite of hypertonic. So hypotonic is going to have the water move into the cell because there's more solute inside. So when the water moves into the cell, it's going to swell it up, okay? And it could potentially burst the cell if a lot of water goes in and there's not enough space. So hypertonic, the cell's going to shrink. Isotonic, it's not going to change. Hypotonic, it'll swell, okay? Remember, we're referring to how much water is there. So if there's less water outside, the water is going to move outside. If there's less water inside, the water is going to move inside. We are looking at the connection between the water and the solute. Okay, solvent and solute. Very, very important. So make sure you get this down. If you still have questions over this, let me know. active transport is the last part. So active transport does need ATP. Active transport is going to move against the concentration gradient. So we're going to go from low concentration to high. We're moving up that slide. So we're going to require energy to do so. The three types of active transport we talked about were sodium-potassium pump, endocytosis, and exocytosis. So for the sodium-potassium pump, what we have is that the protein pump is going to move sodium out of the cell and potassium into the cell with the help of ATP. Now remember, there is already a high concentration of sodium outside, and there is already a high concentration of potassium inside. So it's going against the natural flow, hence why it requires ATP energy. Endocytosis is moving the large particles into the cell by creating little vacuoles from the cell membrane. Remember that animation where it wraps around the molecule until it goes far enough into the cell that the cell membrane breaks off from the wrapping around the particle and closes back up. So it's going into the cell. Exocytosis is directly the opposite. We have a vacuole inside of the cell with waste that the cell does not need anymore, and so it wants to flush it out of the cell, and so that vacuole moves towards the cell membrane and merges with it until the particles are outside of the cell. Both of these are changing the shape of the cell membrane. One is letting things in, the other one is letting things out. And that is it. That's all you need to know for cell transport. If you have any questions, let me know and we will discuss that. And if you have any issues with the information, just send me an email and I can help you with that. Study hard because I may or may not be giving you a pop quiz tomorrow. Have a good rest of your day. I'll see you in class. Bye.